Ask the Messengers, the program that deals with substance abuse, real people telling real stories. Hosted by Pastor Lester Lewis, co-host Charlize Wilkerson and Leroy Carey. Produced by David Humphreys. Where there is addiction, there is a chance for recovery. We're trying to help save lives on Ask the Messengers.
Today on Ask the Messengers, our topic is addiction and how heroin in Detroit has changed since 1967. Our guests today are Charlie C. Coleman, president of Real Michigan and a recovery coach trainer, and Billy Cason, well-known Detroiter and publisher of Hair Designs magazine, plus real stories from real people.
It took me to jail at 53. It brought me to my knees that I had lost my home, my cars. I found myself living in the basement apartment in a room.
You know what? After I started shooting it, I didn't care. When I was in school, I would try to, I wasn't really addicted to it where I was sick every day or anything. So no one really knew. But then when my buddy shot me up, that was it.
It's all here on this episode of Ask the Messengers. And now, here's your host, Pastor Lester Lewis.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I am Pastor Lester Lewis, and we want to welcome you to Ask the Messengers. Ask the Messengers is a show that's all about real people sharing their real life stories, and I believe that they are so bold because they're sharing not only their victories but also some of the defeats that they've been through, but ultimately where they are right now, and that is at the place in which recovery is possible. And so today we've got a great show lined up for you, and I'm so glad that you tuned in. Today our topic is heroin in Detroit and how it has changed from the days of the 1967 Detroit riots. Now, I know you've probably seen the movie, and maybe if you haven't seen the movie, there's been mixed reviews about it. A lot of things happened. As you know, in 67, the Detroit riots were happening. But we want you also to know that that during that time, that there are two gentlemen that we have with us today who not only can talk about it, but they were living the actual experience. And so they're going to share their experience with us today. And so I am so proud to have with us, and we're going to introduce our guests. And so we're going to go to a testimony first, and then we'll be right back.
Behind my relapses, the shame and the guilt caused me to stay out there a little longer. And because I was so ashamed that I was using again. It took me to jail at 53. It brought me to my knees that I had lost my home, my cars. I found myself living in the basement apartment in a room with my partner living on a twin-size bed. What I would suggest is you ask for help. Don't keep getting high to medicate how you're feeling or the shame or the guilt that you may have. Ask for help. Just tell somebody that you need to get some help, and help is here.
All right, we're back, and listen, today we have two gentlemen with us today who absolutely have a great story to tell, and these brothers were not only are they living testimonies of the 1967 riots, but they are also living examples that even though you may have been through something, you can also get to something if you stay committed to the cause. First and foremost, we have with us today Mr. Billy Cason, and he is the publisher of Hair Designer magazine, and he's been doing that for 35 years, and he is a man who's been on the front lines. He's not been hiding in the office rooms. He's been on the streets talking with people and helping people here in the Metro Detroit for years, and we're so happy to have him on the show with us today. And then and also we have Mr. Charlie C. And if you don't know Charlie C., something wrong with you. Charlie C. is the president of Real Michigan. It's an advocacy group that fights for prevention and recovery. And I am so proud to say that this brother is he is 1 month short of 30 years in recovery, and that's wonderful. Amen. All right. So listen, Mr. Billy, how you doing, sir?
How you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. All right, Mr. Charlie, how are you, sir?
Fantastic.
Good, good. Listen, if you don't mind, I'd like to, take you for a time travel back to 1967 here in the city of Detroit, and in that year, as you know, the movie is out and it's talking about the riots and all the other things, and I don't know if you've seen it and if it's been properly depicted or not, but we want to hear your perspective from about what happened, and most of all, how did heroin impact the city at the time, and what do you remember about the time? Brother Charlie, can you get started with us on that?
Well, it's not about remembering. I lived it. In 1967, black people in the city of Detroit, as a result of hard work from our predecessors, had brought Detroiters up. We were doing well. We were well educated. And during that time, because actually I was in the print shop that the riot started.
Is that right?
I knew exactly what happened and why it happened. There was a state of, the Detroit police were kind of like a gangster squad.
Okay.
And for years they had been going on corners, telling the guys hanging out on the corners to give up the corner. Get off the corner if you were with your wife or children. They would pick you up. There wasn't a lot of arrests at that time. They would pick you up, take you around the block, and elbow you in your ribs with flashlights. And so
touch you up a little bit. Huh?
They would touch you up a lot, and they did that. It was a gangster squad. In fact, Detroit was run by gangsters. From looking back, there was a lot of stuff that was happening with gangs, and there were large gangs like the Purple Gang, and some of the politicians, spread the consciousness or the unconsciousness of that spread to the city. Okay,
Charlie, I'm going to come back. I got more questions for you, certainly. And so, Brother Billy, listen, what do you remember about that time, 1967 Detroit?
Well, see, after the riots is when it was heroin before the riots, but you had to go way back in the alley to get some heroin at that particular time, before the riots. But after the riots, it was something they called P-dope. It was a little peak cap that a dollar cap. They put the dope in the dollar cap, and they sold it to you. And that little dollar cap would knock you on the ground. It was powerful. But see, what happened is, when you got a city, and the city, the police can't control the city, then they put the heroin in. The heroin can control you. You can't do no riding when you nodding. See what I'm saying? When you got your head between your legs, you're nodding. You can't do no riding. But they knew what was going to happen, because that's the same thing that the British did to the Chinamans when they took over China. They didn't have enough troops to keep the Chinamans in control, so they gave them heroin.
So heroin was used as a tool.
To control the people. I used to go to parties before the riot. They'd be playing James Brown, and people be dancing all up on the side of the wall. But after the riots, you go to the party, they done put that P-dope on the little record album, and they would snort it. See, as long as they could shoot, it was shooting dope, it wasn't too many dope fiends. But once they found out they could snort it, they come out with that book. Iceberg Slim came out with that book telling you could snort it, so they started snorting it. There wasn't no dancing. James Brown was still playing, but everybody was nodding.
All right. Well, Billy, listen, I got some more questions for you coming up. Mr. Charlie, listen, I've got a question for you. Compare heroin use from the old days in the 60s, and I say old days, I don't mean it in a derogatory way, but in the days of the 60s as opposed to today.
Well, I only can talk from experience, like Billy just described. There was, you had to go way back to find heroin in 1967. It wasn't a heroin time. and that's why they had to get us high. Heroin then probably was brought from China. They called it China White. They called them penny caps, and they put your head between your legs. Today, it's just a matter of, it's the same thing. The only thing is they're using different mixes. See, they've always mixed the drugs with different chemicals that give different reactions, but the bottom line to the addiction is obsession and compulsion, which keeps you trapped.
All right. Well, listen, Billy and Charlie, listen, we're going to come back with some more of the stories that you guys have to tell. We can't wait to hear it. But listen, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with more Ask the Messengers.
Stay tuned for more of Ask the Messengers.
Hi, I'm Ashley Greaser, the Office Manager at Premier Supportive Services. Here at Premier, we offer a variety of services that include residential service, 24-hour residential, attended care, semi-independent, as well as many other services. So if you know of anyone that has been involved in a car accident, we are located at 17555 James Cousin, Suite 2, or you can give us a call at 313-345-3668.
Pastor Lewis will be right back with our special guests, Charlie C. and Billy Kayson. God's World, a Detroit institution at West 7 Mile in Schaefer, says get 'em while they last. The Old Bombers 2017 commemorative calendar is going fast. Get your church supplies, communion cups, tithe envelopes, Bibles, inspirational books by top authors. Call in your orders at 313-862-8220. Shop online at godsworldsuperstore.org. God's World, for all your inspirational needs.
My drug of choice was heroin, but I used multiple drugs. I used crystal meth, crack cocaine, Xanax. I first tried heroin when I was 15. I got with this girl, and her grandma gave it to us. And yeah, my life went downhill from there. I started using heroin every day, probably up until I used it every day up until about 18, and I started shooting it, and yeah, it was all bad. My mom, I stressed her out all the time. She had to have a double heart bypass. Her chest is always hurting, and I'm sure it's because of me. You know what? After I started shooting it, I didn't care. When I was in school, I wasn't really addicted to it where I was sick every day or anything. So no one really knew. But then when my buddy shot me up, that was it. Everyone knew.
Welcome back to Ask the Messengers. Listen, we are having a great conversation today with Charlie C., president of Real Michigan, and also Billy Kayson, who is the publisher of Hair Designer Magazine. And we are talking about Detroit in the 1960s during the 67 riots and some of the climate that was going on then. But we're also talking about the climate of the drug culture during that time as well. And so, Billy, can you tell me, listen, are there different types of heroin from what was happening then to now? Are there different types?
Well, see, I don't really know too much about heroin. I never used it. Okay. Only thing I knew is about the heroin they had back in the 67 because it was everywhere. Mm-hmm. They had streets on like Blaine. You could buy your heroin at this house. You buy one cap, you get a cap free. You buy heroin at the other house, you get a free chicken dinner.
Oh, are you serious? They literally had...
It was advertising in the window.
Really?
In the window. The police was hands off. Police wasn't messing with anybody that was selling heroin. You was good because they wanted to punish us for tearing up the city. That's what happened. So the police would drive down the street and see these signs in the window, but they didn't do anything about it. It was hands off, and they were shooting galleries. You could go in there and get your heroin, buy up, and shoot right there in the dope house.
Okay, so a shooting gallery is where you could buy and also use at the same
time.
Yeah, okay.
Same time. and the heroin was like I said, was P dope, some of the best dope that you could get. Now I didn't ever mess with it, no heroin, because I could see the effects that it had on people. Right. You know, once you start shooting heroin, that was it. Because once you finished that and wore off, you was looking for your next hit.
But listen, Charlie C., I got a question for you. I know that you and you're dealing with you're an advocacy group that fights for prevention and recovery. Can you tell me this? And I think everyone really wants to know the answer to this question. Can someone who has been addicted to heroin live a fairly normal life?
Well, in today's world, in fact, I was addicted to heroin. It really wasn't the substance. After you start using something that you think you find some type of feeling in or motivation in, then the addiction takes over. And so, yes, I used the heroin. And today, we have more information. See, never before has a way been proven in the lives of addicts that there's a way out. There's solutions. There's, in fact, what we're involved in Real Michigan is providing recovery, education, advocacy, and leadership to inform people. See, you know, there's nothing like someone who is in a hole and then someone who's been in that hole and knows the way out. And so we know the way out. And so we're trying to affect not only Detroit, but 10 regions of Michigan as well. We're a federally funded organization, Real Michigan. You can contact us at realmichigan.org, and you can find a lot more about it. But we're a grassroots organization that deals with information, education for anyone who wants to know. And we're also encouraging, especially during these times, we're not only recover in this city now, we vote. So who we are as recovering people can change an entire election.
Listen, Billy, I got a question here for you. Listen, there's a lot happening in the media, and they're covering and they're talking about heroin use and opiates, and so why is this big push, or now the media is just now covering it, shall I say, the use of heroin?
Well, as far as, you know, it's become an epidemic again. It was back in '67. You know, it was put out there by the ruling class. It was gave to us so to keep us, you know, from rioting, really. Because when you high off of heroin, you be seeing them guys nodding. They're not really asleep. See, heroin take you from the position that you're in. If you sitting right on the street corner, you shoot some heroin, you end up, in your mind, you're in Paris somewhere. You enjoy, you hanging out and you partying, but you don't have to even leave your spot. You're sitting right there nodding. The gentleman over here that said he used to use, he'll verify that. You're not asleep. You think they sleep, but they're not asleep. They somewhere in Paris or in the Bahamas or something partying. So that's what the thrill of the drug. It takes you from the position that you're in and put you somewhere where you want to be. So, you know what I'm saying? And only thing that you had to do was shoot the heroin. But as far as the what's going on now, I really don't be associated around with too many, you know, people that's using heroin and stuff now. So only thing I can say is where you come from now is people buy the medication like for pain and stuff like that. And once they run out of that, and you can't get no more, I think they call it I don't know what they call it, but it's some kind of medicine that you get that the doctor give you. And once you run out the prescription and stuff, you want that same high. You don't want them pain, so you go turn to heroin. And heroin is cheaper, but so that's what so many people is getting addicted now from actually prescription drugs.
Wow.
But once the prescription drugs run out, then they got to, you know, because they're kind of clamping down on that a little bit.
All right. Well, listen. I mean, obviously, there's different avenues in which it occurs. But let me ask you this question, Brother Charlie. Do you believe that that the government is really doing anything to help fight this epidemic? I mean, you know, are they really fighting the drug problem?
Well, they don't have a choice. See, There is no choice anymore because it's not you might die. The chemicals that they are cutting heroin with now, like fentanyl, to accentuate the high. But it's reached an alarming rate that no one expected. See, because with heroin, you want to get as close to this sensation, as close to Paris as you possibly can.
Okay.
Like Billy was talking about.
Right.
You want to go to the moon. Right. You want to hear the bells. You know what I mean? And you want to go in dreamland if it's only for a minute. Right. And so it's killing so many people today. And it's gotten too close to home.
Well, Brother Charles, let me ask you this question, because I've heard this said, and please tell me if this is true or not. I'm a layman when it comes to the drug issues, and I really haven't been exposed to it that way. But and obviously you've got some experience with it. I was told that as long as it was in the hood, they were giving out jail time. But the moment it hit the suburbs, now they want to start programs. Is that true?
It's true to the extent that it has become so apparent, and the overdoses have come more than just stereotype. See, the stereotype and the stigma of addiction has changed. It can be your neck. It can be the senator's son or the congressman's daughter, and that's a little bit too close. And so a lot of times they are embarrassed by the fact that they have allowed the circumstances to get, and so organizations like Real Michigan are formed with boots on the ground trying to do something about the opioids circumstance. But like Billy said, it's been around ever since really '69.
Really quickly, Billy, can you tell me, can anything be done to help people get off heroin? Just real if you can give me one good answer, what would that be?
Well, see, that's a decision that you have to make for yourself. What's happening is that people get in predicaments and they try to use, actually heroin or other to soften the predicament that they're in.
Okay, listen, we're going to continue this conversation in just a moment. Listen, we got to cut to a break. Listen, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We've got more coming.
Stay tuned for more of Ask the Messengers.
God's World, a Detroit institution at West 7 Mile and Schaefer, says get them while they last. The Obama's 2017 commemorative calendar is going fast. Get your church supplies, communion cups, tied envelopes, Bibles, inspirational books by top authors. Call in your orders at 313-862-8220. Shop online at godsworldsuperstore.org. God's World, for all your inspirational needs.
Hi, I'm Ashley Greaser, the Office Manager at Premier Supportive Services. Here at Premier, we offer a variety of services that include residential service, 24-hour residential, attended care, semi-independent, as well as many other services. So if you know of anyone that has been involved in a car accident, we are located at 17555 James Cousin, Suite 2. Or you can give us a call at 313-345-3668.
Back to Ask the Messengers. Again, I am Pastor Lester Lewis. My guests today have been Billy Kaysen, publisher of Hair Designer Magazine, and also Charlie C., president of Real Michigan. Listen, gentlemen, obviously we've been talking about 1967 and heroin and the culture that has come up. Listen, if you could share some final thoughts about what you believe about the culture then and the culture now as it relates to drugs and those who may be addicted in recovery. What would you have to say about that? Brother Billy, would you go first?
Well, as far as just like I said before, what you have to do when you have these situations that you get in, you need to find another way of solving the problem. See what I'm saying? Heroin or any type of drugs, that's just a temporary fix. That's not going to fix it forever. You got to find something that's gonna completely. They got like the gentleman said over there. They got different organizations you can turn to now, and you can't handle it by yourself.
Charlie, how about you, sir?
Well, see, the good news is, and it's exciting, the model has changed for recovery. Instead of just counselors who have been college educated, now we've been extremely effective and successful. There are thousands of recovering people now for long-term recovery. Not only am I the president of Real Michigan, I'm a recovery coach trainer and a recovery coach. And peer specialization has been extremely successful where you have one addict speaking with another addict who has been there, and they can show you the way out. There are meetings and pathways that are options for people to try to get out of the trap or the situation that they're in. And there are people who really do understand.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank both of you gentlemen for being on the show, and certainly for bringing your life experience to Ask the Messengers. And absolutely, I believe that every life has a message attached to it. And so thank you so much for, Brother Billy, for what you shared, and certainly, Charlie, what you shared with us. And we're so grateful. Now, listen, we just want to let you know, Ask the Messengers, this show is absolutely helping people, and we know that it is. There's a saying that says that evil prevails when good men do nothing. We need your help to stay on the air. We need your help to keep this programming coming. We need your help to continue the message to go out to people who are addicted, or perhaps maybe even a grandmother or a mother who doesn't know where to turn or what to do. This show is bringing help. On the screen right now is the information, and all you have to do is connect with us in some way. And won't you give generously? Every little bit helps, and certainly every big portion will provide and meet need. So we just thank you so much in advance for your donation, for going to AskTheMessengers.com or sending it in through what we call snail mail by check or money order. Well, listen. Today, I thank God so much for these men, and our prayer certainly is that if this message is hitting you at wherever you are, whether you're at your place of addiction or you're in your place of recovery, maybe you didn't believe that there was hope for you, but after seeing these testimonies and hearing these real life stories, that you will know that there is a way out. In fact, we want you to know that as long as you believe you can, it's more than possible. And so today, thank God so much for these men and so for their testimonies, and certainly we want you to know that your story is not over, that there is still hope. As long as you are still here, there is still hope. And so we look forward to having you back on the show again shortly. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching Ask the Messengers.